This is the story about how I put all my effort into transforming my oldest son into a mountain biker. The truth is, I love mountain biking, and the thing that I want more than anything else is to share that with Teegan. Despite teaching thousands of people to mountain bike through my videos, there's still one person I've yet to teach: my son. So we decided to embark on a big adventure together, a father-son road trip across the country. The plan? To introduce Teegan to the world of mountain biking while exploring some of the most iconic spots in the USA and reconnecting with old friends along the way. But here's the thing, I'm carrying some personal baggage. My dad loved fishing the way that I love bikes, and I spent countless summer days on the water struggling to find joy in something that just wasn't my passion. I worry that this attempt to share mountain biking might feel the same way to Teegan. Nonetheless, I'm committed to making this journey unforgettable, not just for the riding, but for the memories we'll create together. Whether or not Teegan becomes a mountain biker, I hope this adventure will strengthen our bond and give us both something to remember forever. Join us as we hit the road, face challenges, and discover what it really means to share something you love with someone you care about.
Okay, this is your very first ever GoPro clip of all time on a bike.
The trip kicked off in Asheville, North Carolina, visiting my friend Seth, who you may recognize from Burn Peak. If anyone knows how to get someone excited about mountain biking, it's definitely Seth. He took us to the perfect trail to start our adventure.
We're gonna take them on a pretty smooth downhill. It's like a lot of bang for your buck.
Flowy, fun, and forgiving. This trail was ideal for easing Teegan into the world of mountain biking with minimal climbing and just the right amount of challenge to build his confidence. We did our best to make a big deal about conquering the basic technical sections on the trail, encouraging him to create some positive momentum for the rest of the trip. But because this trail was so flowy, and because Seth and I hadn't ridden together in a while, we had to make some time to have a little fun for ourselves too.
This trail is incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I wish I could tell you that I kept the momentum going after that ride with Seth, but instead I proceeded to make my first mistake of the trip. This area is loaded with incredible spots like Canoga Bike Park and Burn Park, but as it turned out, both spots required a fair bit of climbing steep sections of trail to get to the good part. I also completely underestimated what beginner-level mountain bike handling looks like, and I put Teegan in some tough spots with a couple technical downhills too.
What? I'm not going down this, bro. Like maybe that second one.
Thankfully, Canoga Bike Park had a solution for us. We got our hands on a rental e-bike, and instantly the uphill problems were solved. I'm all for building strength and stamina on the bike, but when your main goal is getting a non-rider stoked on riding in 2 weeks, we needed to make a change, and this was a game changer for the rest of the day. All of a sudden, the frowns turned upside down as we swapped our uphill death marches to easy climbs and flowy downhills. Finally, the momentum began to shift back toward the stoke, and we can continue turning him into a mountain biker.
He's an e-biker now. How was that?
Honestly, for beginners like me, it's a good first, it's a good intro into it, so you aren't totally exhausted and oh, all my muscles hurt, this is so lame. It's like a good assist.
Canoga turned out to be a great time, and our Loan Pass worked perfectly at the park. We used the Loan Pass network to guide our trip across the country, and they helped support our trip, which gave us access to a ton of bike parks and shuttles along the way. In fact, the next stop on the trip was another Loan Pass location, Howler Bike Park in Branson, Missouri, just 750 miles down the road. But upon arrival, Howler Bike Park was closed. I learned one of the most important lessons about planning cross-country road trips. Plan ahead and don't make any assumptions. We arrived early in the week on a day that they're typically closed for maintenance. Thankfully, they opened the park for us to ride, and we got the entire bike park to ourselves. Not only that, but we had Hayden Cavanna as our tour guide. He ripped us up to the top of the park and dropped us off to rip lap after lap, and that gave Teegan the opportunity to get some serious reps in on the trails, which not only fueled the stoke, but his confidence on the bike continued to develop in some of the more technical sections of the trail. The real highlight was getting Hayden to show us some of the massive features of the park. This place is incredible.
It's always good when you have somebody to sort of demonstrate it for you, so I'm just thinking, now that you've seen it, you can probably knock one of those down. This wall ride actually looks totally doable.
I'm good.
The other great thing about Howler Bike Park is that less than 2 hours away is a little town called Bentonville, and that's where we went next on our journey. Upon arrival, we ran into one of Bentonville's best riders and coaches, Annika Beerton. After a quick catch-up, she showed us around Slaughter Pen. It's an incredible spot to practice and progress your riding, so we focused our efforts on teaching Teegan how to hit drops on his mountain bike.
It was pretty good.
You want to go again?
I need to go faster.
Huh. Dude, you know what would be sick is if we did like a father-son drop together. How sick would that be?
I was blown away by the trails we'd ridden so far, but as a West Coaster, I'm a bit biased and was anxious to put the mountain back in mountain biking. The next stop on our trip was a mega drive all the way to Durango, Colorado. 973 miles of father-son bonding time in the car. Plenty of time to see the country and talk about life, the universe, and everything. Oh, and bikes too. One of the other things we did along the way was upgrading Teegan's gear as we progressed along the trip. Jensen USA supported the trip and supplied us with more than a few pieces of gear to dial him in along the way. It was incredible to see how much difference the right equipment made in his riding. Just changing out his shoes alone was a game changer. I've put a full list of all the upgrades we did along the trip in the description of this video if you want to check them out. In Durango, we finally put the mountain back in mountain biking. Another uphill climb, but totally worth it to hit this sweet, flowy trail back down. Teegan was even confident enough to hit this steep roll-in on the trail, another sign that his skills were improving. Not to be outdone, I found a challenging line at the top of the trail just to let him know that his dad's still got a few skills up his sleeve. After a week's worth of riding out at sea level, this little hopping section helped remind me that we're now at elevation. We have officially put the mountains back in mountain biking. But did you know that just down the road a few hours is the real mecca of mountain biking? Somehow you can go from lush green forest trails to slick rock in less than 3 hours. The fact that it's possible to hit both of these trails in the same day absolutely blows my mind. I wish I could say that Moab was the highlight of the trip and that everything came together perfectly. The truth is, after non-stop driving and non-stop riding, I made another mistake. I'd pushed the schedule and activity a little too hard, and we had to hit the brakes in Moab.
I think keep going uphill.
Instead of riding all day, we switched things up and took a day off, which was exactly the right move. Aside from some legendary trails, Moab is also the home to Arches National Park and the Delicate Arch. We filled our hydration packs and hiked up to see the arches, which was the perfect way to spend our day off the bike. The next morning, I woke up early for a little solo session on the slick rock, and it's a good thing that I did it solo. One thing I didn't realize about this trail was how gnarly it actually is. There's a lot more climbing and consequence than I remembered, and while I had an absolute blast riding these trails, it would have been a much different ride for someone less experienced. As much as he's learning on this trip, managing Teegan's skill level and making sure he doesn't get in over his head is super important to me. Nothing would stop this trip faster than a trip over the bars, especially in a place like this. Thankfully, we've kept him safe so far, and he got some much-needed rest while I rode Moab's finest trails to my heart's content. After an epic morning of riding, we packed up once again to meet up with another mountain bike dad. Maybe the #1 dad in mountain biking? You may know him from his YouTube channel Porter MTB, where he teaches his kids how to shred, but Eric Porter and I go back decades before either one of us had kids. He has an epic spot just outside Park City, so we met up and hit Woodward Park City together. He took some time to teach Teegan a few new skills, and then Teegan got to ride his very first chairlift.
So this is your first time on any chairlift?
Yeah.
Sick.
It was great to see a familiar face after so many days on the road, and I knew Porter would be another boost to the overall vibe of the trip and Teegan's progression on the bike.
I don't think you could get any better hospitality.
After our day at Woodward together, Porter took me out on a dad's-only ride where he imparted some wisdom about getting your family into riding bikes.
Try to think about a way that the reality and the experience exceeds the expectations. Because if you're like, this is the best ride ever, and it was an okay ride, that's not a good experience. Whereas if you just set the bar low, we're gonna go out and have fun, and you don't promise the world, but then you get to, there's this surprise waterfall that you go to or something like that. Most of the time when you take them out, the experience is even better than they expected it to be. That's a big win for them.
After a few days with the Porter family, we hopped back in the van and continued our journey. The next stop was Tamarack Resort in Idaho, where we had another bike park all to ourselves. Mostly because it was in the middle of the week, but hey, we'll take it. This spot has a wide range of trails, and Teegan managed to tackle his very first blue trail, which was a big step forward for him. I'm sure he wasn't complaining about the chairlifts at the spot either. The view was epic, and we got some serious descending done. I think our real highlight for this trip came next, though. On our way back down to Boise, we stopped by the Deity World headquarters to visit my friends Eric and Sadie, who own the company. You might know that I run their gear on all my bikes, but at this point of the trip, Teegan's bike was still relatively stock. Eric took Teegan's bike into the warehouse and proceeded to completely dial in his bike with all kinds of new parts. It was basically Christmas for him. A huge thank you to the Deity family for taking such good care of us. We gave the parts a great test the next morning at Eagle Bike Park and then headed over to see legendary mountain bike photographer Ian Highland's gallery show at the Push and Pour. I've known Ian for ages, and I was actually there when we shot this photo of Porter on the wall, so it was fun to show Teegan around the show and tell him about some of our mountain bike freeride history. What happened next was completely unexpected. After nearly 2 weeks of punishing heat, we found ourselves on a chairlift above the snow line of a bike park. As we crossed over into Oregon for the final leg of the road trip, we stopped in Bend to hit Mount Bachelor's Bike Park on opening weekend. This was another Lone Pass location, but we got a little sidetracked on our way to the ticket booth. After a little session outside, we headed up the mountain for some loamy goodness, our last big riding session of the trip. Honestly, I've been holding my breath for the past 2 weeks, nervous that Teegan would crash or totally hate bikes. Thankfully, neither one of those things really happened, and the advice from my friends like Eric Porter really helped me make sure that we had a safe and fun trip. But would I have done it differently? Actually, yeah. Although the cross-country trip was an incredible opportunity to see the country and spend tons of time together as father and son, I probably could have focused our time in one area and put more energy into repetition as opposed to smashing from state to state on such a punishing schedule. He made incredible progress as a rider over the course of the trip, but he probably could have done that if we just locked in on Bentonville or even back home in Portland for a few weeks. All that said, I wouldn't trade this trip for the world. We had an incredible time, got to create memories and see the country together on 2 wheels and 4. The real question is, will he ride with me again now that this trip is over? I guess only time will tell. I need to say a huge thank you to all the riders who helped us out on the trip, the bike parks that let us film, and to all the partners who helped me make this dream a reality. Thank you to Jensen USA, Lone Pass, and Marin. You guys are the best. If you want to see the rest of the trip, I'm going to be publishing more videos from each stop of the trip over the next few weeks. You can also get access to a bunch of behind-the-scenes footage from the trip by signing up for the YouTube channel membership or on my Substack.